When it was announced that the E-Class and C-Class coupes were going to be discontinued, that was a huge blow to this market because the reality of the situation is a lot of manufacturers are not prioritizing luxury coupes at around $50,000 to $60,000. You're either looking at a performance car or you're going to be spending $120,000, if not more, for a grand tour. Now, a lot of Americans who are looking at buying a sports coupe are more than happy to spend that money because they want the very best. But to get the very best, some of you are going to be priced out of the market. But Mercedes-Benz has a solution. So rather than having two coupes, we have one with the CLE. Now, from its design, it does look like a C-Class that's been extended, but it does take the very essence of the E-Class and C-Class and combines it into one package, which does make me very excited for this model. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the CLE, take a look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a luxury or sport coupe at around $60,000, then maybe taking a look at the new CLE might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I'd like to thank Mercedes Benz of Westwood in Westwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Mercedes-Benz inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. If there's one specialty Mercedes-Benz has been known for throughout the generations, is that they consistently design and engineer legendary luxury coupes that embody the very essence of what a grand tourer should be. While the CLE may be the literal successor to both the C and E-Class coupes, it's more of a direct descendant of the CLK, a car that has aged rather gracefully the last 15 years. Despite this market being limited to a handful of cars, such as the BMW 4 Series and Audi A5, Mercedes is attempting to resurrect a lost art in the automotive world that has been long forgotten in the 2020s. Starting off with pricing, the CLE comes in with a base cost of $56,500. But if you crave more features and the better powertrain, the CLE 450 starts at a reasonable $65,650. Likely being the first question interested buyers are going to have will relate to size, as the CLE is 6 inches longer than the last generation C-Class coupe, and will closely resemble the dimensions of the E-Class coupe. Compared to rivals in this market, the CLE outsizes both the A5 and 4 Series, potentially placing this new luxury two-door in a class of its own for the time being. And as we'll discover later on when we take the CLE out for a test drive, it doesn't perform like the other Mercedes-Benz products it shares platforms with. And this departure in character truly begins with the design. While many will be quick to try connecting the CLE to last generation C-Class coupe, when you take a closer look at the headlight housings, grille, and front bumper, there's something SL-like with the front fascia that refuses to go unnoticed. It could very well be the optional $3,000 AMG line package that's equipped on our model today. But the sportier aesthetics complement the road presence so well on this car, and thanks to the mixture of gloss black accents and small touches to the grille, I couldn't help but stare at this coupe for a few minutes. But best of all, despite being a model that slots between the C and E-Class, it's not heavily influenced by either sedan, at least outwardly. Moving over to the side profile, our CLE is sitting on the optional 19-inch AMG multi-spoke alloy wheels, with your choice of either downsizing to 18s or going with the more aggressive set of 20s. Not only does our wheel choice help accentuate the silhouette of this coupe, but ride quality isn't really negatively affected, and despite having a suspension that's tuned primarily for comfort, there's still a feeling of being connected to the road, much like the Mercedes-Benz Grand Tours that preceded this model. Today, we have body color folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then for the final third, the CLE continues its distinct appearance with cosmetic styling cues from both coupes it's replacing. Yet, with the light bar design that runs the length of the rear fascia, there's a minor resemblance to the EQ line. Following in the footsteps of its siblings, built on the updated MRA II platform, smoother body lines gives this two-door a sleek and clean road presence, where its simplicity is what defines the outward demeanor. Capping off the rear fascia will be dual exhaust outlets and contrasting accents that were also present up front. Under the hood, the CLE 300 is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. This is the same powertrain that can be found in a number of Mercedes-Benz products, and as we're seeing across the lineup, the CLE also has a mild hybrid system which improves the smoothness of the overall performance, most notably with the auto start-stop. While it was still too early to receive any official 0-60 numbers from US media publications, Mercedes-Benz projects the 300 can reach highway speeds in about 6 seconds, although during the test drive, its surprisingly quick acceleration may prove to be yet another downplay on performance, as all German brands do with their new vehicles. However, interested buyers should be pleased with this coupe's ability to generate a smile or two, and considering this is only the base powertrain, that has me craving for the inline 6, which should be arriving soon. Standard for the CLE 300, Mercedes-Benz's 4MATIC all-wheel drive system does make this luxury coupe a year-round treat for those looking for a fun car in the winter. And for those concerned about fuel economy, the CLE receives a respectable 24 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a similar interior to the C-Class and GLC, which may come as a surprise, considering its size is more reminiscent of the E-Class coupe. With our model being a decently equipped example, we have the power adjustable and heated MB-Tech seats, but you can opt for leather or Nappa leather if you desire a heightened sense of comfort and quality. In typical Mercedes-Benz fashion with their coupes, the bolstering and support is relatively aggressive, but hugs you when cornering on back roads. And this is further enhanced by the dashboard, which also wraps around you to provide a fighter jet-like cockpit. Since the CLE is inspired primarily by the C-Class, the technology you'll be interacting with should be familiar if you had the chance to check out a refreshed GLC or C300. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster, with the ability to change up this display by using the buttons mounted on the left side, where you can showcase the navigation map or scroll through information pertaining to your vehicle. If you opt for the Pinnacle trim, you'll also receive a head-up display, and more importantly, augmented reality and a top view camera, which we don't have equipped on this CLE. Then moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have a 12-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. And made standard for 2024 is the Burmester surround sound system, which amplifies the audio of your favorite music. For those hopping in from an older generation Mercedes-Benz two-door, your biggest learning curve will be the lack of physical buttons, as everything is now placed in the head unit, including the dual-zone climate control. Compared to prior Mercedes-Benz user experiences, the menu layout has been cleaned up to limit confusion when interacting with this touchscreen for the first time. Helping to set the mood, the ambient lighting will add a nice touch, especially when traveling home at night. As always, you have a rear backup camera with trajectory to help you park the CLE. Placed just beneath the screen will be a single row of buttons for the drive mode selector, vehicle settings, and volume control. But many of these functions can be quickly found by scrolling through the head unit. For the center console, tucked away will be a wireless phone charging pad and a single USB-C input. And for the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items. Standard, a panorama roof will bring in a lot of natural light to the interior. And to wrap up, while the CLE isn't a family car by any means, it is possible to squeeze in 2 average-sized adults who may want to join you on a spirited drive. And then making our way around to the back, much like with the CLA, just press down on the emblem and it opens nice and wide. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 15 cubic feet of room, which is pretty respectable, because that would be on par with a lot of mid-sized luxury sedans. Now, if you are going on a road trip with a significant other, you could probably fit 7-8 bags of luggage back here. This, in essence, is a grand tour. It might not be in the literal sense of the word, But when you take a look at what it's offering in terms of space, this is definitely a great replacement for a C-Class coupe if you are a current owner of one. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problems. It has 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And I could have gone grocery shopping afterwards, which for a lot of coupes, you really can't say the same. Then on the left side of the rear cargo area, you will have some netting for some smaller items, such as maybe a couple water bottles, car detailing equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Then, of course, one thing to keep in mind here with a coupe is that even with the second row seats folded, you're not going to have all the space in the world like you would find in, say, a GLC 43 or a sporty crossover. So keep all of that in mind. I know a lot of you already have that expectation walking into this car, but if you do plan on moving some stuff around, or you have gear with you like I do, since I film every single day, you're going to have a lot of space where you can just store everything back there. So that is really great to see. And again, I think for a car in this market and what Mercedes-Benz is trying to do with the CLE nameplate, having that practicality and interior space, I think, is definitely going to go a long way at the end of the day. And then beneath the floor mat, you aren't going to have a spare tire, but you are going to have another compartment for another bag or two. So again, for a car of this size, that's really great to see. And then finally, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's take the CLE out for a test drive. All right, so we're now behind the wheel of the all-new Mercedes-Benz CLE. Let's take this coupe out for a quick test ride to see how it performs, how it handles, how it drives, how it compares to, say, a BMW 4 Series coupe, and also an Audi A5. Now, I think the CLE is in a league of its own, mostly because it's too big to be a direct competitor to a 4 Series or Audi A5. Mercedes-Benz classifies the CLE as a Grand Tour, which I find a bit ironic because when I had featured the E-Class, I felt the E-Class was like a Porsche Panamera now with the technology and just the way it drove, but also was kind of a mainstream version of what a modern interpretation of a Maserati Quattroporte would be if Maserati wanted to make a 4-cylinder luxury sedan. But the CLE is a bit interesting and intriguing just because of what it's offering at its price point. It's built on the same platform as the C-Class and the E-Class on the MRA II platform. It's also a mixture of both. Now, for the interior, as we've already discovered, it is a C-Class. It has the same engine, since we have the 300, as a E350 and a Mercedes-Benz C300. So I'm expecting this to be no different than what I've experienced with those two models in the past. But I'm actually a bit excited here about what the CLE is offering. Now, personally, I think this has a nice little growl to it that the C-Class and the E-Class don't provide. Now, of course, the E-Class is luxurious, better insulation, but I don't remember the C300 having this growl to the 4-cylinder. Now, of course, we do have 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. We have the mild hybrid system under the hood to help aid with the performance, make it drive smoother, but also, of course, really pair well with the transmission. And I'm hoping that's the case for this model as we take it out on the road. What I also like too is that it's decently sized, so you have a lot of shoulder room up front, and it does make you feel as though you are driving a Grand Tour in a sense. Now, since this is supposed to be a sports coupe, let's place it in sport mode. What I immediately notice here, whether it was in sport or comfort, steering is pretty firm, which I have to say isn't a characteristic that I've experienced with Mercedes-Benz products in the past, up until very recently with the new C-Class, GLC, and E-Class. I love the firm steering. I love the fact that this car, even in CLE 300 form, feels a bit more on edge. It feels like it wants to go, it wants to move, it wants to be driven on some back roads, and I can appreciate that. I can definitely appreciate that, because I would think that, oh, this is going to be more of a luxurious experience, but from its design, its interior, and so far what I've experienced on the road right now, it's a pretty fun little coupe. Already up to 60, are you kidding me? I was not expecting that. Now again, the mild hybrid system works wonders, but I feel like with the CLE, this engine and transmission is tuned differently compared to the C300 and E350. This is playful. It's fun. Now I think the reason why Mercedes-Benz dropped both coupes and then replaced it with this model is that coupes are kind of falling out of style at this price point. People would prefer spending $150,000 for a Grand Tour and not necessarily a coupe like this. But if we're going to look at its main competitors, its main competition, this does feel, at least in terms of its handling characteristics, like a 4 Series. And then I haven't experienced a A5 coupe. I have driven an S5 Sportback, an A5 Sportback, and an S4. It resembles that as well. The only difference here is that you're going to have a lot more interior space. That this isn't necessarily a compact coupe. This is almost like an E-Class coupe in terms of its dimensions. And with that, I think you're going to feel as though you're driving a more grand vehicle. Now, the question that I had, though, is where does the CLE slot into place? Because if you're spending around $60,000 for this model, you know, are you going to be more apt to choose a 4 Series or an A5 because it's smaller, and in that mind frame, you probably think, oh, well, it's going to be more nimble. But if you're not looking for an AMG product or an M or an S, I kind of like how the CLE performs, how it feels. Its agility, the way it sits on the road is pretty impressive. But one thing that I can also really appreciate here is that the way the suspension is tuned, the way the seating position is, it doesn't feel like either of the C-Class or E-Class. And while you have a C-Class interior, it doesn't translate to the on-road performance and driving experience. So let's go on this back road here. Let's see what the CLE is capable of. On the brakes, nice and strong. Into the corner, handles very well. I love the firm handling here. I'm not going to say it feels light on its feet because it does have the weight that you would experience with a Grand Tour. And I don't think this is an all-out Grand Tour like a GT, but there's definitely some weight to the chassis and the suspension. But even when you're going over the bumps and imperfections, it handles them pretty well. Now, there is some body roll, but again, I'd expect that with a 300 model. But it feels very sporty. And I love the sound of the powertrain. Now, as much as I would say that for the top of the range CLE, that having a V8 powered coupe would be fantastic, I have a bit of a secret to tell. That going with the 6-cylinder C43 back in the day wasn't a bad choice. While purists would say, oh, this is not a real AMG, people go crazy over that. Like, get over yourselves, honestly. The C43 was perfectly fine. And I kind of hope that Mercedes-Benz does the exact same thing with the CLE. Because I think even with the 6-cylinder, this would be a fantastic coupe to drive around. And honestly, I'm counting down the days until the AMG version of this arrives, because I want to talk to my contact at Mercedes Benz of Westwood and say, all right, when is this arriving? Because I want to be there the day that it comes off the truck. Because what Mercedes Benz is doing right now with the MRA II platform, to me, makes their lineup far more enticing and appealing compared to where they were a couple of years ago. Because their products, and I mostly will stick with the C300, GLC, and also, I think, even the E-Class, I'd be like, all right, you know, I'm still going to choose a BMW at the end of the day. The thing now is what Mercedes-Benz is doing to this chassis in regards to its rigidity. Also, of course, the handling and the performance now with the mild hybrid system. It's making it very difficult. And even though I love the ZF 8-speed automatic, because Mercedes-Benz has retooled the mechanics behind their vehicles, I'm a bit more intrigued. I'm at least more likely to get a taste of what they're offering. Whereas in the past, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to sit this one out. I just don't really care. I think Mercedes-Benz is a second-rate platform or manufacturer to what BMW is giving you. But now in the 2020, seeing what BMW has done, I mean, just in regards to design, it's almost unforgivable. And with Mercedes-Benz now almost going back to the basics, going back to where they were, I'd say maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'm compelled. I'm definitely compelled. And around this rotary, again, the steering is very nice. I love how aggressive this powertrain is. And while you are going to feel some of that body roll, for a 300, I really can't complain. Because at that point, you know exactly what you're signing up for. Oh, this is such a good chassis. I felt that with the E-Class, but in coupe form, see, and this was something that was lacking with Mercedes-Benz products a few years ago. And I've always looked at Mercedes-Benz, especially for their non-AMG line, as being just luxury, being just one-dimensional. That's not the case here with their latest products. This coupe is willing to have fun. It's not sedated necessarily. And again, when I looked at the window sticker, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. Same engine in a C300 and E350. And I'm like, all right, it's going to feel luxurious. Not exactly. There's at least some soul to this car. And again, I can appreciate that. This doesn't feel like a C-Class coupe. But also, it's not as quiet as an E-Class sedan. So, it has its own character. It has its own identity. And with a lot of brands now just making cookie-cutter cars built on the same platform, feeling exactly the same way, I like the fact that this does feel unique. So to wrap up my time with the Mercedes Benz CLE, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for this brand new coupe? This car, to me, I was genuinely surprised. It put a smile on my face. That is not something I was expecting walking into a car with a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. The fact that it does feel aggressive, that it's tuned in a way that's more enthusiast-focused, has me excited for what's to come later on down the road. Because if you can give me a 6-cylinder engine with this platform and also a sports-tuned suspension, this is going to be one very fun Grand Tour. And the fact that it takes some elements from the C-Class and the E-Class and combines both to give you what I think is a nice blend and harmony here at this price point, it just has me excited. I'm genuinely excited for what Mercedes-Benz is doing right now. Because Mercedes-Benz with the C-Class coupe, I think the C-Class coupe was a great car. I think also the E-Class coupe was great as well. But this feels a bit different. It feels like it's a C-Class but extended. It feels like a C-Class coupe but longer. And that gives me a lot of hope for what this car is going to be providing on the higher end. But as currently offered here with this model, I think this is going to be a very fun car. Yes, it is luxurious first, that it's going to appeal to somebody looking for just refinement, quality, and comfort in a coupe. But I think that for somebody who is an enthusiast who misses the C-Class coupe or the C43 or the C63 coupe, you might feel compelled and feel attracted to this car. And I think what Mercedes-Benz is doing right now with this generation or this platform, there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of potential here. And I also like the fact that they kind of kept it simple. It's not really anything different than a C-Class. It has the length of an E-Class coupe, has the interior quality you would expect at this price point, and has the agility and playfulness of a 4 Series coupe. So, at the end of the day, I'm actually really excited about this car long term, and I want to experience other trims, and I want to experience other powertrains with this model to get a better idea of what the CLE is going to be giving us for the next few years or the foreseeable future. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.